we call a jollof rice index, because it's only through the jollof rice index that you can actually know the true figure of Nigeria official headline inflation. Now, what do we call a jollof rice index? This is a benchmark index that is going to tell us how much it will cost an average family to prepare a pot of jollof rice in Nigeria. Inflation, a monster in an economy. Inflation being a monster or an enemy, not only to Nigerians, but also the entire world. This inflation we talk about has become a tormentor to people's purchasing power as well as their savings. And this is the reason why the monetary authority in CBN have been putting a lot of measures in place to ensure that inflation is being tamed. Last year, December, official headline inflation stood at 34.80%, the highest ever. Then the National Bureau of Statistics in early 2025, they have to do what we call rebasing. They changed the base year in the consumer price index instead of 2010 to 2024 and the current year to 2025, and the inflation figure is adjusted from as high as 34.80% to 24% in 2025. Currently, in the month of June and July, we have official headline inflation. In June, we have it to be 22.22%. In July, we have it to be 21.88%. Now, if inflation decline, does it translate to decrease in price of goods and services? No. From the National Bureau of Statistics, when you were told that inflation decline, what it means is this: on the average, the items in the baskets of goods is now 21.88% more expensive in the current year than it was in 2024 in the same month, which is the month of July. Now, this is what we are saying. If in June last year, if you have spent 10,000 on one particular item, in this 2025 July, it has gone up by 21.88%. By implication, let's calculate, multiply by this current inflation figure, 21.88% divided by 100. If you do your calculation, you are going to have something like, you are going to have 2,188, then plus this 10,000 naira. So by implication now, you are going to have 12,188, which means the item that cost you 10,000 in July 2024, that same item this year is going to cost you 12,188 naira. And this inflation, official headline inflation, is being measured on what we call year on year. Now, this is the reason why you see that the price of goods and services is not actually coming down, even though the inflation decreased on year basis. Now, let's quickly look at what we call Consumer Price Index, CPI. Consumer Price Index is a benchmark index used to gauge or track the price of baskets of goods and services in an economy over a short period of time. Now, what are the items that can be found under the Consumer Price Index? We are going to see food. We are going to see rent. You are going to see power or energy. You are going to see health. We have a lot of items under the Consumer Price Index. Now, in June, the CIP, the figure of the CIP is 123.4%. In July, we have it as 125.9%. Now, let's do a short calculation here. It's going to be the current year, 125, that's current month, minus the old one, 123.4 over 125.9 multiplied by 100 over 1. If you do this calculation, you are going to have 1.99, which is approximately to 2%. Now, what this one means is this: because we use the Consumer Price Index to measure the inflation on month-to-month basis, Why the official headline inflation is being measured on year-to-year basis, but it's only the consumer price index now that can actually give you the true value of the inflation figure in Nigeria, which means in the month of June and July, the item here in the CIP has gone up by 2%. Now, if the 10,000 you spent in the month of June is not the same 10,000 now. This is what it means. In the month of June now, in July rather, if you have 10,000 multiplied by 2%, that's month-on-month basis divided by this, you are going to have 200. So if you have 200, add 200 back to 10,000, so you are going to have 10,200. So what actually cost you 10,000 in the month of June 2025, in the month of July, it's going to cost you 10,200. And that's the reason why you see that even though official headline inflation declined or plunged, in month-to-month basis, it does not decline. It's still going up. And that is why when I want to look at inflation figure in Nigeria, I hardly rely on this figure. I prefer what we call a jollof price index, because it's only through the jollof price index that you can actually know the true figure of Nigeria official headline inflation. Now, what do we call a jollof price index? This is a benchmark index that is going to tell us how much it will cost an average family to prepare a pot of jollof rice in Nigeria. Now, look at it. In the basket of jollof rice index, what are the items that are being used to cook jollof rice in Nigeria? You are going to have rice, you are going to have pepper, you are going to have onion, you are going to have salt, you are going to have vegetable oil, you are going to have either chicken or turkey, depends on what you want to use. What of other seasonings that you are going to combine? Now, you cannot tell me that, let's say pepper now. So in some places, you could five seeds of pepper could be 200 or 300. In some places, it could be 500. What of the salt? What of the chicken? What of the turkey? So you can see that if you look at each price of each of the prices they are selling this item, it has gone up in Nigeria. So you can actually use jollof price index to measure the true value of inflation figure in Nigeria. And that is why officially, if you look at the jollof price index, we were told that between March 2023 down to June 2025, the cost of jollof price index has gone up by 153%, which means for an average family of 5 to cook a pot of jollof rice for a family of 5 is going to cost between 27,000 to 40,000 presently in Nigeria, something that's supposed to cost between 10 to 15,000 before. Now, you should also know that this cost of preparing a pot of jollof rice also vary from state to state. That is why I actually said it's between 27 to 40,000, because what you are going to see, what you are going to buy in some places, in some states in Nigeria, the prices differ because of cost of transportation. So it's only through the jollof price index that you can actually get the true figure of inflation. So me, I prefer to use jollof price index to gauge the inflation figure in Nigeria. Now, why am I actually teaching this? You know, in elementary economics, we were taught, especially under the national income, we were taught that savings is equal to investment. But in the real world phenomenon, your saving cannot be equal to investment, because inflation usually deals with your savings. What do I mean? The 10,000 naira that you have kept in bank last year, if you want to look at the figure of that 10,000 naira today, it's not the same thing. What 10,000 naira can buy last year, that same 10,000 naira cannot buy this year. Inflation has eaten deep into the savings. That money you have kept to the bank for the last 1 year. Let's check. That 10,000 naira you have kept in the bank in the last 1 year. If you look at the current inflation figure in Nigeria, which is 21.88% on year basis, if you say 21.88% over 100 multiplied by 10,000 naira, just like what we have done before, what it means is this: you are going to have 2,188. Add it back to the 10,000. You are going to have 12,188 naira. So which means the 10,000 that you have saved last year is not the same 10,000 this year, because you can actually subtract this 10,000 minus 2,188, giving you 7,000 plus. So that 10,000 you have paid to the bank is now 7,000 plus. Or you may look at it in this way: Can you use the same 10,000 naira that you kept in bank for the last 1 year? Can you use it to buy the same item this year? No, it's not possible. But do you know, if you have actually used this money for your investment, maybe probably you decided not to put it to some risky asset, you now decided to embark on what we call a mutual fund, maybe a money market mutual fund, which will just maybe just within within 1 month. If you have kept, let's assume somebody have kept 1 million. This is what I particularize, I'm not just teaching it. If you have kept 1 million, 1 million in the money market mutual fund, at least the least you could have collected at the end of the month, because it's 1 month, it will have been between 23 to 25,000, depends on what the fund manager use your money to trade. Or maybe you decide to use what we call a balanced mutual fund or equity mutual fund. This take at least 3 months. If you have done 3 months balanced mutual fund, only if you know you are not going to use your capital for the next 3 months, you put it for balanced or equity mutual fund. This will give you between 110 to 120 for within the space of 3 months. So why keeping the money in the bank? Know fully well that inflation is eating your savings. So you cannot use savings to hedge against inflation, because actually use investment to hedge against inflation. And that is the reason why I have taught this very topic. For now, let's call it a day. Thank you.